안녕하세요. Welcome to the Land of Korean Cinema. I owe all of you a major apology. Some of you might have realized that I've already done a video for today's show. I was so exhausted the day I made it, I came across in the video as if I was on meth or something. I got an insane amount of dislikes for it, and rightfully so, it was a terrible video. So the lesson is, don't shoot videos when you're exhausted. So, I'm sorry. Allow me to correct myself. Let's talk about The Whale or Kyoung-young. The show stars Namkoong Min, Ji-eun, Jong-tae, Park Ha-sun, Kyoung-young, and many others. The show is about an NIS agent who's been missing for a year. When he gets back to the agency, he finds himself not remembering his past year. But he soon learns that there's a traitor at the agency and that person has something to do with his amnesia. And so the investigation begins. If you watch the first 2 episodes of The Whale, you're met with some indescribable intensity. It's like a freight train running over you, but it's filled with so much awesomeness. The action, the hand-to-hand combats, the pacing, the story, everything is pretty much perfect. But if you're expecting the show to keep on going like that, you're bound to be disappointed because The Whale is in large part a political thriller. But just because the pacing slows down doesn't mean that the show doesn't have anything else to offer. By showing us how the hierarchy works within the agency, the show pretty much shows us how our world is run by those in power. Naming this show The Whale is actually very fitting because most of the important decisions are made by people behind an invisible curtain, both in the show and in real life. But what truly fascinated me was the show's depiction of human memory and perception. The main character has partial amnesia, and unknowingly he's traumatized by things he don't even remember. But even if he remembers something, can he be sure that it's correct? Can he see the whole picture? Not to mention that he's heavily medicated, which really doesn't help. So what is real and what's not? The Whale is basically a case study on how inherently flawed the nature of our individual perception and memory is. And apart from the action, this was the most fascinating aspect of the show for me. It's a lot more psychological than I was expecting, and it dives a lot deeper into this than I was expecting. And I loved every minute of it. In the last few episodes, a good deal of drama is added to this mix, as well as some really interesting moral dilemmas. There's a main villain in the story, and honestly, by the end, I could totally understand him too. It's the Thanos syndrome. You don't necessarily agree with him, but you can totally see where he's coming from. The difference between him and the main character is just individual choice, because they're the same in a lot of ways. Besides all that, there's an insane amount of intrigue in the show, because you never know who's a friend or a foe. So the main character basically can't trust anybody, and since we only know as much as he does, the story never ceases to be interesting. But the absolute highlights are the action scenes. The hand-to-hand combats are absolutely mind-blowing, but the car chases are really well done too. And finally, here's another show after Squid Game that doesn't hold back visually when it comes to violence. I mean, that's the nature of the main character's job. He was awesome, and I wanted a lot more of that. Also, I was genuinely, positively surprised by some character arcs. Certain characters are not nearly as evil as you might think, so have fun finding out who they are now. As I was watching the show, I kept thinking that this story should be a novel. In fact, I'm surprised that this isn't based on a novel. It would make a fantastic read. But when it comes to the viewing experience, it gets a little rough sometimes. There's an insane amount of dialogue in the show, and while they're mostly important, it's really hard to follow the story sometimes. So many names are mentioned that if you're unable to keep track of who is who, you're gonna have a pretty hard time enjoying The Whale. Because each small information is important, but keeping track of all this is just really hard. It's also pretty hard to connect to the characters because almost everyone is really cold and rigid, which they have to be. Their job is really serious, but it takes a long time to finally see them as human beings. It's true for the main character as well. It takes about 10 episodes to finally show his human side, but it's all the more powerful, and Namkoong Min truly nailed the dramatic bits. He was actually fantastic. Anyway, my biggest issue is really the pacing sometimes. The middle part of the show is just way too slow, there's way too much dialogue, and I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't bored sometimes, especially after the adrenaline rush of the first 2 episodes. But thankfully, the last 3 episodes more than made up for it. They were a lot more dramatic and emotional than I thought they would be, and I also have to give them props for ending such a complex story so well. So overall, The Whale is a really intriguing action thriller series. The action is exceptionally good, the story is really interesting, and the performances are solid. I really enjoyed the psychological aspect of it, and I really appreciated that the show had something to say about the current state of our world. I'm gonna give The Whale 87%. If you like political thrillers, this is a must, but action fans can also give this one a try. And somebody, please, write a novel about this. 여러분, 오늘은 여기까지만 해요. 영상 봐주셔서 감사합니다. 이 영상 좋아하면 구독과 좋아요 잘 부탁드립니다. See you very soon. 다음 시간에 만나요, 여러분. 안녕히 계세요. Bye!